Hey friends, welcome back to the Guitar Max channel, and today I want to talk about Japanese guitars. And no, not about the Akira Takasaki ESP, but about four very different guitars that have popped up on my radar recently. These guitars are different in many ways, but they are all made in Japan and they are all very impressive instruments. Now we're going to check out these four guitars and how Japanese guitars have changed over the years. But of course, guys, real quick, if you enjoy videos like this, checking out cool guitars and staying up on all the latest news in the guitar universe, and you have not already subscribed, please consider subscribing right now. So the guitars we're going to look at are the Fender HM Strat, the reissue version, the 1992 Ibanez Purple Multicolor Gem, and then the Vola OZ that I reviewed a few months back. And then finally, this Jackson Rhoads, also from 1992. And I know you're saying, wait a minute, Jackson is a USA company. Well, of course that's true, but this is from the Jackson Pro Series of the 90s, and it's made in Japan. Like I said, these are all very different guitars, but they're all great examples of Japanese craftsmanship. Now let's take a look at this Rhoads V first. It's a neck-through design. It's a poplar body with a maple neck, or poplar wings and a maple neck. It's got 22 jumbo frets and then the Jackson version of the Floyd Rose bridge. Now back in the 90s, this was offered as sort of an alternative to the much more expensive USA-made Jacksons. But the interesting thing about that is that these were sold for about $1,500 back in the 90s, and so today that would be around $3,000. So yeah, it wasn't as expensive as a USA-made Jackson, but it certainly wasn't a cheap guitar. Next, let's talk about the Ibanez, and this is the 1992 PMC Purple Multicolor Gem, and this is, of course, one of the Steve Vai signature guitars. It's got a basswood body, a maple neck, and fretboard, jumbo frets also, and then, of course, the top four frets are scalloped, had DiMarzio pickups, and the new price, again, this is back in the early 90s, the new price was $2,100. So even back then, it was an expensive guitar. But if you think about that with inflation-adjusted dollars for today, that was like $4,500 or maybe even a little bit more than that. So that was a very, very expensive guitar. But the thing to consider with the Ibanez is that was really considered like a flagship guitar, right? It wasn't like a less expensive version of a USA-made one, because it's, an Ibanez, Japanese company that we're talking about here. So that was really top of the line. So it makes sense that it would be that expensive. Okay, now let's get out of the 90s. This is the Vola OZ that I reviewed a few months back, and this is, basically a brand new guitar here. This has a mahogany body, a flame maple top, not a veneer, and then it's a roasted, one of these modern roasted maple neck and fretboards with 22 stainless steel jumbo frets. It's got Goto hardware and then the Vola proprietary pickups. And this guitar goes for about $14.50, and that was one of the big things I was talking about when I made the original video for this guitar, is that for a Japanese-made guitar for a price today, $1,400 is a really, really good deal. And now let's talk about the Fender HM Strat reissue. And to be clear, not all of the original Fender HM Strats were made in Japan. Some of them were, but all of the reissue versions were made in Japan. And this guitar is really just a few years old. The reissue, I should say, came out about 3 years ago. And this guitar sold for $1,200, which actually makes it the most affordable guitar out of everything that we're looking at today. Now this one has an alder body and then a one-piece neck and maple neck and fretboard with 24 jumbo frets and a Floyd Rose special bridge, and then also, like the tuners and hardware, is Goto, kind of like the Vola. So those are all very impressive guitars, all beautifully made, but the big thing here is that once upon a time, made in Japan guitars were considered to be inferior and really substandard. Now, many of you may already know the history of post-World War II Japan, but after Japan's surrender at the end of World War II from 1945 to about 1952, General Douglas MacArthur led a massive program to transform, restructure, and rebuild Japan, and a big part of that was building as strong of an economy as possible within Japan. Now, the idea was, of course, that this would help Japan recover and rebuild as quickly as possible, but also it was thought that it would help kind of defend Japan from the encroachment of communism, which at that time was coming from what was then the Soviet Union. Anyway, a big part of that recovery process with the Japanese economy was to get Japan producing products that could be exported and sold to other countries. And that was when we started getting all of that made in Japan stuff here in the United States. But like any new venture or first try, you know, the first things you do are not going to be very good. And so early on, the made in Japan products, guitars being no exception, got a really bad reputation for quality. But since the economy was on the line, Japanese manufacturers very quickly made more and more improvements, to the point that after 15 to 20 years, the quality had improved so much that the bad reputation from those early years was finally left behind. Now, I've got a clip here that I want to show you. This is from an interview I did with Steve from Boston at an event we did back in 2019 in Germany. He had some really interesting observations about how the perception of import guitars has changed over the years. Check this out.
Well, I think that the stigma that imports used to have was well-deserved because, because back in the 70s, the first import company used to be U.S., then it was U.S. and Japan. Then it was US, Japan, and Korea. Then it was US, Japan, Korea, and Indonesia. Then it was US, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, and China. And so we keep expanding. Now we've added Vietnam, right? We've added all these extra layers of places where you can go to get stuff created. I started playing guitar in 1972. And the guitars back then were really bad. So if you had like a Japanese imported like Harmony, it had a neck like a baseball bat. It might have been made from who knows what wood, some crazy grain wood that if you looked at it, you'd be like, what even is that? You know, sometimes the frets weren't even on tangs, they were just glued on the front. They had flat bottoms and they would just be glued flat, which the intonation was horrible. And the tops of them, they would just flatten them so they wouldn't have, they would sort of just plane the top so that they wouldn't have any high frets, so they'd all be even, but that they'd never crown the frets. Right. They wouldn't do anything like that. When you got to America, they understood all that stuff and they were able to make much, it was like night and day. And you'd say like, well, you always have to buy American. Then Ibanez came along.
Right.
And Ibanez was a real game changer for the industry because they said, okay, we're going to be an import company, but we're going to, they were one of the first companies to ever use a CNC machine.
Really?
Back in the early 80s, they were one of the first ones. And they sort of really took the stigma away for a guitar outside of the U.S.
Okay, so I've got a question now for the old-timers in the audience. Let me ask you guys, what was the first Japanese guitar you played or the first one you bought? When was it? And what was the quality like? Was it good, bad, kind of mediocre? Let us know down in the comments below. The guitars I have here are really all from the 1990s onward, and so this stuff is all really, really high quality. I would say that these guitars, really all of them, can hold their own against anything that's outsold today. And in some cases, there are guitarists that consider Japanese-made guitars to be the highest quality guitars you can get. And when you look at some of the top-of-the-line stuff from maybe ESP, that's pretty hard to argue with. But let me know what you guys think of all of this stuff. I would love to continue the conversation down in the comments section below. And guys, when I can, I will put links for everything I was talking about in this video down in the video description below. I'll have links for the guitars if I can find links for them. Obviously, you know, the older stuff, I might not be able to do that. But I'll have links for the guitars and the amps I was using in the demo, plus my social media and instructional videos, all that stuff down in the video description below. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of all this stuff that I'm talking about in the video. And guys, if you did enjoy the video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you soon.